Hey, look, I got the drop, I got the low. Got what they cook up on that stove. I got the drop, I got the low. I got the drop, I got the low. Got what they cook up on that stove. I got that work, they be like, whoa. Fuck up a bag, they fuck up some more. I got the drum up on that pole. Spin on your block and let it bitch blow. Oh, I'm the shit, bitch, you ain't know. Fuck up a bag, they fuck up some more. Fuck up a bag, ay. Fuck up a bag, ay. Fuck up a bag, fuck up a bag, fuck up a bag, ay.
Welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keane. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Ask that you please add, follow, and check us out. Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, and wherever you're watching from, please make sure to hit the like, give us a thumbs up, share this, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and make sure to share it on your social medias, the groups that you belong to, all of that, because sharing is the best way to support us. Also, if you'd like to donate and support to the channel, you can do that by going to PayPal, Cash App, Facebook Messenger, or by joining us over on Patreon. And keep in mind, everybody who donates and supports, not only do you help us be able to do what we do, you get access to the uncensored content every Sunday. We do private shows, extended tarot readings, all different types of cool stuff. So, yeah. And everybody who donates and supports in the month of January, which now we're going into February. So if you donate now at the end of the month, I'll go ahead and give you access to February. But, you get access all month long, and you get access to all of our private content. So we got an entire library, and it's quite a bit, because we can't put a lot of stuff on the public platforms these days. And if you would like to book a personal tarot reading, sorry guys, I'm kind of looking around my computer here. If you guys like to book a personal tarot reading, you can text 513-393-2396 or email therealbestdampodcast@gmail.com. Yeah. And that's kind of the gist of it. So tonight I'm fucking excited, bro. So those of you who watched the Necronomicon Part 1, I do have Part 2 coming for you. And it's gonna be the Tale of the Mad Arab, which is like the real, kind of guts of the story when it comes to the Necronomicon. But I'm not done with necromancy just yet. Tonight we are going to dive into some necromancy again, but this is a cool fucking story. Like, of all the cool grimoires in the world, this is one of the coolest, guys. So I hope you stick around, I hope you watch this. Tonight we're going to be discussing the Black Pullet, or the hen with the golden eggs. Now, bear with me through the boring part here. I'm just going to, break you down with a little bit of history so you know what we're diving into, but this is absolutely one of my favorite tales. So basically, and I'll give it to you here, but basically what happens is this dude, he's a soldier in Napoleon's army, which I don't know if you guys have seen the new Napoleon movie. Tell me what you think in the comment section. If you want to watch a new Napoleon movie and haven't seen it, put it down in the comment section. I'll give you a website that you can go to and watch anything you want for free. So, the Black Pullet is also known in French as Le Poule aux Chiffres d'Or, the hen that lays the golden eggs, and it is a grimoire that proposes to teach the science of the magical talismans and rings, including the art of necromancy and Kabbalah. And it is believed to have been written in the 18th century by an anonymous French officer who served in Napoleon's army. The text takes the form of a narrative centering on the French officer during the Egyptian expedition led by Napoleon, referred to here as the Genius, when his unit is suddenly attacked by Arab soldiers or Bedouins. The French officer manages to escape the attack, but is the only survivor. And an old Turkish man appears suddenly from the pyramids and takes the French officer into a secret apartment within one of the pyramids. He nurses him back to health while sharing with him the magical teachings from ancient manuscripts that escaped the burning of Ptolemy's library. So this is fucking cool. The dude basically comes outside of the pyramid, finds, these French soldiers that were part of Napoleon's armies just massacred. Like, you don't even think nobody's alive. And he finds one dude barely clinging to life, and he brings him inside in the Great Pyramid, and he's like living inside of there in some secret shaft or chamber. It's fucking wild. And he begins to break it down and tell him this story, like teaching him magic, and it's just fucking amazing. So you guys are about to hear the story in like just 2 seconds. And finally, one more piece of background before we jump in. Necromancy, just so you know what it is. Necromancy is a practice of magic involving communication with the dead by summoning their spirits as apparitions or visions for the purpose of divination, imparting the means to foretell future events and discover hidden knowledge. Sometimes categorized under death magic, the term is occasionally also used in a more general sense to refer to black magic or witchcraft as a whole. In fictional settings such as Dungeons and Dragons or fantasy video games, it's associated with the reanimation of corpses, often meant to be used as weapons, but it's not in real life, right? In real life, it's really simple. It's just talking to dead spirits, right? And using dead spirits for the practice of divination, which you're not, I don't know why they try to include this under the label of necromancy. This isn't really a necromancy story, but for whatever reason, it falls under this. They lump this one in with the Necronomicon and shit like that, which Necronomicon means the Book of the Dead. Which is the Cthulhu mythos you're about to see. They couldn't be more different, seriously. These are very, very different books. But this is known as the Black Pullet, or the Hen with the Golden Eggs, and this is a teaching in talismans, rings, and the Kabbalah. This is just one of my favorite books, guys, of all time. So if you're watching this, please hit the like. If you're in the chat, hit that like, hit that thumbs up. I posted this video yesterday that I was going to do the live, so maybe I might have posted a little bit too early. Just so hit the like, share the link out there, comment for me, and all that good stuff. And keep in mind, reviewer powered, so consider donating and supporting, and joining us too. You also get to join us on Sundays for the private shows. If you donate and support, so. There is a benefit to that. All right, here we go. Comprising the science of magical talismans and rings, the art of necromancy and the Kabbalah, for conjuring the aerial and infernal spirits, sylphs, undines, and gnomes, for acquiring knowledge of the secret sciences, for discovering treasures, for the gaining of power to command all beings, and for unmasking all evil spells and sorceries. From the teachings of Socrates, Pythagoras, Plato, Zoroaster, the son of the great Eromasus, and other philosophers whose manuscripts escaped the burning of Ptolemy's library and translated from the language of the Magi and of the hieroglyphs by the doctors Misabula, Jabamia, and Donhizurus, Nehemian, Judahim, Eliab, and translated into French. The work which we offer to the public must not be confused with a collection of reveries and errors to which their authors have tried to give credence by announcing supernatural feats, which the credulous and the ignorant seized with avidity. We only quote the most respectable authorities and most dignified in faith. The principles which we present are based on the doctrines of the ancients and modern, who, full of respect for the divinity, were always the friends of mankind, endeavored to recall them to virtue. By showing them vice in all its deformity, we have drawn from the most pure sources, having only in view the love of truth and the desire to enlighten those who desire to discover the secrets of nature and the marvels which they unfold to those who never separate the darkness which surrounds them. It is only given to those who are favored by the great being to raise themselves above the terrestrial sphere and to plan a bold flight into the etheric regions. It is for these privileged men that we write. To us no importance is given to the splenetic voices which are raised against us. The silence and the smile of disdain will be the only answer with which we shall oppose them, and we shall follow with firm, sustained steps the route which indicates to us the luminous stars which fill the heavens, which cover our heads, and which light these thousands of worlds, which bless every day with our sovereign master of the universe, which he has created, also ourselves, and whose will maintains this admirable order, which commands our admiration and respect and our love. Basically, guys, if you've made it to this point, congratulations, because most people are so dogmatic that they would already have clicked off by now. They would even hear the title, the Black Pullet, and all of that, and that would be all, right? Ooh, necromancy, that would be it. But if you've made it this far and these words haven't busted your ass and sent you running like a bitch in the other direction, you're about to have a really good book, you know. And I'll have to put this in the on Patreon, and I'll try to also put this in the comment section for you guys if you want to download this book yourself and read it on your own time. As always, I want to preface this video by saying, use your own spiritual discernment and critical thinking. You know, don't take my word for it or anything. Anything that is said as, my own opinions and my own interpretation of these books, you can take it with a grain of salt. You know, it's how I feel or I think about it. Whether you value that opinion is up to you. But I will try to stick to the script as much as possible. But I do like to chime in because I feel like I do have knowledge to offer, you know, especially when it comes to the occult. I've studied this for a decade now, religiously. And, I feel like this community and our people, there's really none that match it, you know, out there as far as knowledge goes. You won't find a channel like this on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere else, quite frankly. You know why? Because most people that are involved with anything like this are either sworn to secrecy, right, and not able to share it with you, like I am, or they just don't have the knowledge or the mastery of this knowledge to be able to give it to you in a clear, concise way, to where you'd be able to understand it anyways. So, here we go. And remember, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, this isn't financial advice, medical advice, none of that. This is for entertainment purposes only. Fuck you, YouTube. Before beginning the subject, and to acquaint my readers with this profound science, which until this present day has been the object of research of the most constant and profound meditations, I must unbosom myself of how these marvelous secrets were communicated to me, and the manner in which the divine providence allowed me to escape from the greatest dangers, and so to speak, conducted me by the divine hand, to prove that by divine will it is sufficient to raise unto himself the last of beings, or to precipitate to naught those who are clothed with all power on earth. We all therefore come from God. God is everything, and without God nothing can exist. Who more than I may penetrate the truth eternal and sacred? I formed part of this expedition to Egypt, an officer in the army of the Genius. I took part in the successes and reverses of this army, which victorious or obliged to cede to force from the eventualities and circumstances, always covered itself with glory. As there is no point in relating here any detail which deals with this memorable campaign, I will but relate one single feature with which I was touched and is necessary for the development which I must give to those whom I mentioned in my preface. I had been sent by the general, under whose orders I found myself, to draw up the plans of the pyramids. He had given me an escort of some mounted light infantry horse, and I arrived with them at my destination without experiencing any accident, also without noticing anything that could conjecture the fate that awaited us. We had dismounted near the pyramids. Our horses had been tethered. Sitting on the sands, we appeased the hunger that tormented us. French gaiety seasoned the food which composed our frugal meal. It was on the point of ending, and I was occupied with my work when all of a sudden a horde of desert Arabs fell on us. We did not have the time to place ourselves in a position of defense. The blows of swords descended upon us. The bullets whistled, and I received several wounds. My unhappy companions were lying on the ground dead or expiring. Our cruel enemies, after having removed our weapons and clothes, disappeared with our horses with the speed of lightning. I remained for some time in a state of prostration, facing the sun, at least recovering some of my strength. I raised myself with pain. I had 2 sword cuts on the head and 1 on the left arm. I looked around me. I saw nothing but corpses, a burning sky, an arid sand, and an immense desert, and a frightening solitude. With but the hope of a certain and cruel death, I resigned myself to saying goodbye to my country, to my parents, and to my friends. Invoking heaven, I crawled to the pyramid, and the blood which ran with abundance from my wounds reddened the sand, which was soon to be my tomb. Arriving at the foot of these worldly marvels, I sat down and leaned against this enormous mass that had seen many centuries pass by and which would see many more pass. I thought that my existence, which was soon to end, had come to naught, just as the day was nearing its end, the sun being on the point of plunging into the ocean. Brilliant star, receive my goodbyes, I said with emotion. My eyes will never see you again. Your beneficent light will never shine on me again. Goodbye. As I said this goodbye, which I thought was eternal, the sun disappeared. The night came and covered the world with its dark curtain. And I just want to point out, any type of initiation when it comes to the mysteries always takes place in the desert. Why, you may ask, why the desert? Well, for one, I just kind of want to point out to you some of the things biblically, what we know about the desert, right? Moses is 40 years in the desert. And we'll get into, on another video or episode, we'll get into the 40 days and 40 years and shit. Jesus is 40 days in the desert, right? It is said that the reason initiation takes place in the desert is, one, you have the lack of water, right? And it's the waters above and below the firmament, right? Which represent, the emotions. So it's, a place that lacks emotions, clouding one's perception. Also, Christ, who walked on water, right? So it's like kind of like mastering that part of oneself. And also within the desert, all of the elements are separated, right? So it's like water doesn't mix with dirt to make mud in the desert. When it rains, it creates a monsoon. It just sits on top of the soil, right? Wind and dirt don't mix. So all the elements are separated in the desert, and the elements are the feminine aspect of God being made manifest in the physical world. So I hope that makes sense. We'll get into this more as we go through it, but just trying to give you a little idea of why it takes place in the desert. "Oh heavens," he cried. I was absorbed with the most sad reflections when a light noise could be heard a few paces from me. A large slab of stone detached itself from the pyramid and fell on the sand. I turned to that side, and by the light of a small lantern that he carried in his hand, I perceived a venerable old man who came out of the pyramid. A white beard covered his chest, a turban covered his head, and the rest of his costume indicated that he was a Mohammedan. He cast his eyes around, then advancing a few steps, he halted opposite the course of one of my unhappy companions in misfortune. "Oh heavens," he cried in Turkish, "a man is wounded. A Frenchman is dead." He lifted his eyes to the sky, saying, "Oh Allah." He then discovered the others, which he carefully examined to see if he could not find one who still breathed. And to assure himself, I saw him place his hand in the region of the heart. The old man recognized that they had all ceased to live. Uttering a painful groan, with tears furrowing down from his eyes, he retraced his steps to re-enter the pyramid. I felt the desire to conserve my days. I had already made the sacrifice of my life. Hope entered my heart. Summoning all my strength, I called to him. He heard me, and turning his lantern in my direction, he saw me. Advancing, he gave me his hand, which I seized and pressed to my lips. He saw that I was wounded and that the blood was flowing from the cuts on my head. Placing his lantern on the ground, he removed his girdle and covered my brow. He then helped me to get up, and I had lost a lot of blood and was suffering from extreme weakness. I hardly had the strength to support myself, placing his lantern in my hand. Then taking me in his arms, he carried me near the opening of the pyramid from which he had come and placed me gently on the sand. Giving me an affectionate grip of the hand, he indicated that he was re-entering the pyramid and would return promptly. And I just want to kind of point out a few things symbolically here. First off, the symbolism of the desert we've already established, right? All of the elements being separate in nature, right? Now, the old man with the white beard representing like Father Time. Also, this can be a representation, which is Saturn. Or also this can be a representation of Hermes as well, because he's carrying the lantern, right? And within the lantern of Hermes is the star in the tarot, and the star represents Aquarius, right? So this is like, which represents dreams, vision, consciousness, all of these things. So he's got wisdom, right? He's carrying with him wisdom through the darkness. There's all of this death around. He's pouring blood out on the sand, meaning like he's bleeding out, sacrifice, right? He's already given himself up for dead, died to this world, and now Hermes, or wisdom, is coming to him, right? To show him the light, going within the pyramid, right? And remember, the pyramid, represents not only a trifold or triune being, right? The triune being, Mother, Father, Son, right, whatever. And those are also the 3 points, the first 3 points of creation. God, Satan, you, right? And that's how you trap a spirit, right? So we've talked about this quite a bit. So there's lots of symbolism with this right off of the start. Now, it says, I gave thanks to heaven for the unexpected help that had been sent me. The old man reappeared carrying a flagon. He removed the cork and poured a few drops of the liquor into a drinking vessel, which he gave me to drink. A delicious perfume diffused around me. Hardly had this divine liquor penetrated my stomach than I felt regenerated. I had enough strength to enter the pyramid with my benefactor and generous conductor. We then stopped for a few moments. He replaced the stone that had fallen, which he adjusted with an iron bar, and we descended by an easy slope into the interior of the pyramid. After having walked for some time on the same path, which made several sinuous turns, we arrived at a door which he had secretly opened and closed with care. Then, having crossed an immense hall, we entered another place. A lamp hung from the ceiling. There was a table covered with books, several oriental divans or seats, and a bed on which to rest. The kind old man conducted me to a seat where he made me sit down. Placing his lantern on the table, he opened a kind of cupboard from which he took several vases. He approached me and invited me to remove my clothes with an attention and complacence difficult to describe. Having examined my wounds, he applied with solemn formality several balms which came from the vases which I had previously spoken. Hardly had they been applied to my arms and head than the pains were soothed. He invited me to lie on his bed, and very soon a beneficial and soothing sleep weighed down my eyelids. Excuse me. When I awoke, I looked around and saw sitting near me the good old man who did not wish to partake of the rest while I was asleep, as he feared that I might need help. I tendered him my most grateful thanks by the most expressive signs. In the same manner he signified to me that I must remain quiet. He gave me a new portion of the cordial which had already proved its happy effects. Afterwards he looked at me with extreme attention, and realizing that he had nothing to fear for my life, he affectionately patted my hand. He then lay down on some cushions on the other side of the chamber where we were, and soon I heard him sleeping profoundly and peacefully. O benevolent one, I said to myself, thou art virtue par excellence and pure emanation of the divinity. Thou unitest and bringest men together, and thou makest them forget the pains to which they are prey. Through thee they are returned to happiness, and to thou art this happiness, the object of all their wishes and all their desires. My host made a movement and got up. And just let me know if you guys can hear me too. This is better than watching a movie. Please let me know if you guys can hear me and see me good too if you're in the chat. My host made a movement and got up. He came to me and smiled at seeing me in a state of calm and tranquility, which left him in no fear of my being. He gave me to understand that he was going to lead me so that he could go out of the pyramid and see what was happening outside. He brought to my side that which he thought would be necessary for my needs, and then he left me alone. And I just want to say too, like when he goes into the pyramid on the table, we know like in the tarot too, like the magician, which is part of like manifestation and magic and things like that, he has a table with all the different things laying on it. The vases also represent holding not only medicine, but, water, which, are elemental to flowers or growth, right? So this is a place where this guy's coming into this place, this inner sanctum of this pyramid. So this, and the pyramid also represents the mind, also, right? Or consciousness, the mind's eye, the all-seeing eye. So he's going within himself, essentially. When he's finding this table, it's already set with all of these elements that are set to nurture him and guide him through this magical journey, right? He's got the lantern to navigate himself through the darkness, which through this darkness holds the light of the Aquarian age that's ready to reflect upon his consciousness, all right? Give me just 1 second here. My wire's broken here. Shit. Okay, guys. Maybe not. There we go. Now, until this moment, I had not reflected at all on what had happened to me in this exigency. I found myself safe in this subterranean place. I had no uneasiness relative to my host. However, this would have to come to an end by my departing after I had been cured and rejoining the army. I was occupied with these ideas when I saw the old man re-enter. He gave me to understand that several Arab corps and Mamelukes were surveying the plain, that he had seen them without being noticed because his retreat was impenetrable to all eyes. His retreat was impenetrable to all eyes. It's within himself, right? It's within himself. It can't be seen by eyes because it's inside. It's the subconscious, right? It's the spirit. He indicated that he had in me his care regarded to me as his son. Now remember, this is like this Hermes type of character, right? Regarding him as his son, like a son of God, right? Basically. And therefore I could deliver myself to the greatest security. I indicated to him my complete gratitude, and he appeared satisfied, as I appeared to be dissatisfied to be able to express myself only by signs. Now, let me finish this. Now, he brought me a book indicating that with its help, we could soon communicate together without hesitation. I want you to listen carefully, guys. Seriously, this is very cryptic, if you know what I mean. Okay? So, as I appeared to be dissatisfied to be able to express myself only by signs, he brought me a book indicating that with its help, we could soon communicate together without hesitation. The career which I had followed since my childhood had familiarized me with meditation. I loved the application of mind, and I was soon in the condition to listen to my generous old man. He also showed such compliance in the lessons which he gave me that even with less goodwill, one would have made progress. I remained silent on all that was relative to my new education. My complete cure and convalescence took longer than I realized. My host went out from time to time to see what was taking place, as he was in complete ignorance of earthly events. I want you to understand what's happening right here. Right? He's talking to the Spirit, guys. Right? He brought me a book. This could be the Bible. This could also be this book in particular. Right? This can be the book of truth of oneself too, you know. And with its help, you can communicate together without hesitation. By studying the spiritual text, this allows you to tap into that frequency. Right? Once you communicate, and when you're reading words like this that are written at such a high frequency, your mind, you know, have you ever heard of like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, where it says read it 100 times, you know, because the light within you will recognize the light written within the text. Same concept. These texts were written, you know, by ascended masters, you know, and just like I've said in the past, how our unconscious stores memory. It recognizes symbols and patterns within words, right? Because they carry energetic frequencies as well, and it lights us up consciously. And we start to pick up on that and recognize. So you'll start to hear words between words, if that makes sense. You'll start to hear messages between messages, if that makes sense. You'll start to be able to read between the lines of these books if you follow me as I go through all these. I'm going to do a whole series of books, like seriously, all my favorites. I'm just going through them all, sharing them with everybody because, you know, this is just what I love to do. You know, I'll switch it up with other videos too, but, you know, these are what is going to light your consciousness up more than anything I could ever say to you. You know, I can spew all the knowledge I want, but it's not going to do nothing like something that was actually intentionally made to trigger you, you know, into an awakening. And you might think you're already awake, and you may be, but there's layers to this, and there's levels to this shit, you know. And you're not as awake as you could be, and neither am I. We can always go deeper, right? If you understand what he's saying too, you know, familiarizing yourself with this meditation, meaning when you hear these words, when you're listening to these words, it's like focusing and meditating on it, you know, getting yourself in a place where you're absorbing it, truly absorbing it. He showed me such compliance in the lessons he gave me, even with less goodwill, one would have made progress, saying, you will progress no matter who you are. I remained silent on all that was relative to my new education. That means empty your cup. Empty your cup. Don't think you know everything. Allow yourself to be taught. Become a student. You know, one of the things I hate about the spiritual community is so many people think they already know everything. It's like, why are you watching my videos then if you've got it all figured out? You know, to tell me how I'm doing it wrong? No, that's foolish. You know, it's like, come in like you know nothing, and I bet you gain something. It says, my host went out from time to time. Your host is a heavenly host. It's a luminary. It's your higher self, to see what was taking place, as he was in complete ignorance of earthly events, right? Because the heavenly host is not concerned with this world, right? In short, one day he was longer than usual, and on his return he informed me that the French army had evacuated Egypt and that I could not hope to leave at this time without giving an account of the days that I had spent with him. I should stay with him in which he would make me do by his kindness and love, so that in my particular case of captivity, my fate would not be as cruel as I might think, because he would teach me things which would astonish me, and I should desire nothing in the way of good fortune. And I want to point out too, Like, you've heard of like Paul talk about being a prisoner in Christ, right? It's kind of something similar with his captivity here, right? He's captive, in the physical, but it's a spirit that's in captivity, not his physical body necessarily. We're in captivity in this world, but we see it to be a blessing as it's in Christ. Now, also, as we look at this too, when he, talks about, being within Egypt. The reason they use Egypt is because it's symbolic. Upper and lower Egypt represent the upper and lower self, right? So upper Egypt represents the higher realms. Lower Egypt represents the lower self. They use it all through the Bible. It talks about upper and lower Egypt, and that's why, in case you never knew that, This is the real, true esoteric meanings. You've never been taught this in church, and you never will. Your pastor don't know. Your pastor does not understand the mysteries. I don't care if he's a Freemason or not, he probably don't know, This is reserved for a very small group of people, and that's why they bust your head if you try to teach this to others, because they do not want you to know these things, because it will empower you and activate you in a way that 99.9% of the population is not activated. You will begin to hear words differently once your mind configures to this new way of thinking. I promise you that. So you can either trust me on that and give me a chance, watch 10 videos, and if you're not seeing drastic changes in your consciousness within 10 videos, then unsubscribe. But if you are seeing changes, then support me, share the work, that way others can get something from it too. Alright. I had begun to understand the Turkish language. He told me to get up, I obeyed him. He took me by the hand and conducted me to the end of the chamber. He opened a door opposite the one by which one entered, and taking a lamp from the table, we entered a vault, where there was disposed in regular lines several coffers which he opened. They were full of gold and gems of every kind. You see, my son, that with this one never fears property. Everything is yours. I am reaching the end of my career, and I shall be happy to leave them in your possession. These treasures are not the fruit of avarice and a sordid interest. I own them by the knowledge of occult sciences, with which I am familiar, and the boon which has been granted me by the great being to penetrate the secrets of nature. I can still command the powers that populate the earth and space and are not visible to ordinary men. I, like you, my dear son, I recognize you in the candor, sincerity, love of truth, and aptitude for these sciences. And most of all, I wish you to know that they have cost me more than 80 years of research, meditation, and experience. The science of the magicians, the language of the hieroglyphics, have been lost by the downfall of man. Only I am the guardian. I will impart these precious confidences to you, and we will read together these characters traced on the pyramids, which have been the despair of scholars, and before which they have paled for many centuries. The prophetic manner in which he spoke impressed me, and I showed a very lively desire to understand that which he wished to acquaint me. I told him in this Turkish language, which I was beginning to understand and to talk in a manner so that I could be understood. Your wishes shall be fulfilled, answered my adoptive father. Then lifting one hand to the arch of heaven, he spoke in a solemn tone. Love, my son. Love the very good and the very grand God of the philosophers. And never become proud if he brings you in contact with the children of wisdom. For you to associate in their company and to make you a participant and the wonders of his power. After having finished this invocation of sorts, he then said while looking at me, "Such are the principles which you must fathom. Try and make yourself worthy to receive the light. The hour of your regeneration has come. You will become like a new individual. Pray fervently to him who alone has the power to create new hearts, to give you that which will make you capable of great things that I have to teach you, and to inspire me to withhold from you none of the mysteries of nature. Pray, hope." I eulogize the eternal wisdom which has been placed in my soul, and wish to disclose to you its ineffable truths. And you will be lucky, my son, if nature has placed in your soul the resolution that these high mysteries will demand of you. You will learn to command all nature. God alone will be your master, and the enlightened will alone be your equal. The supreme intelligences will glory in obeying your desires. The demons will not dare to be found where you are. Your voice will make them tremble in the pits of the abyss, and all the invisibles who inhabit the four elements will esteem themselves happy to administer to your pleasures. I adore you, O great God, for having enthroned man with so much glory, and having established him as a sovereign monarch of all the works made by your hands. Do you feel, my son? Do you feel this heroic ambition which is the sure stamp of the children of wisdom? Do you dare to desire to serve only the one God, and to dominate over all that is not God? Have you understood what it is to prove to be a man, and to be unwilling to be a slave, since you are born a sovereign? And if you have these noble thoughts, as the signs which I have found on your physiognomy do not permit me to doubt, have you considered maturely whether you have the courage and the strength to renounce all the things which could possibly be an obstacle to attaining the greatness for which you have been born? At this point he stopped and regarded me fixedly, as if waiting for an answer, as if he were searching to read my heart. I asked him, "What is that which I have to renounce?" "All that is evil, in order to occupy yourself only with that which is good." The proneness with which nearly all of us are born to vice rather than virtue. Those passions which render us slaves to our senses, which prevent us from applying ourselves to study, tasting its sweetness and gathering its fruits. You see, my dear son, that the sacrifice which I demand of you is not painful, and it is not above your powers. On the contrary, it will make you approach perfection as near as it is possible for a man to attain. Do you accept that which I propose? "Oh, my father," I answered, "nothing conforms more to my desires that one should choose propriety and virtue." "It suffices," answered the old man. "Before unfolding to you completely the doctrine which will initiate you into the mysteries, which are most profound and the most sacred, you must understand that the elements are inhabited by very perfect creatures. The immense space between heaven and earth has inhabitants far more noble than the birds and the gnats. The vast seas have many other hosts than the whales and the dolphins. It is the same in the depths of the earth, which contains other things than water and minerals, and the elements of fire, more noble than the other three, has not been created to abide there useless and empty. The air is full of an unnumbered multitude of beings with human form, a little proud in appearance, but in effect docile and great lovers of the sciences, subtle but obliging to the great mages, and enemies of the foolish and the ignorant. These are the sylphs. The seas and rivers are the habitat of the undines. The earth is full practically to the center of gnomes, guardians of the treasure and of the precious stones. These are the ingenious friends of man and easy to command. They supply to the children of the magicians all monies of which they have need, and only ask payment for their services and the glory of being commanded. As for the salamanders, the inhabitants of the fire regions, they serve the philosophers, but they do not seek the attention of their company. I could also talk about the familiar spirits. Socrates, as well as Pythagoras and a few other wise men had his. I have one also. He is near me when I have need of him. This will no doubt seem strange to you, but even if your eyes do not convince you of the truth, you will be able to believe it if you have any confidence in Socrates, Plato, Pythagoras, Zoroaster, Proclus, Porphyry, Iamblichus, Ptolemy, Trismegistus, and other wise men to whose enlightenment one must add to those who give us a natural knowledge. It remains for me to speak to you of the talismans, those magic circles with which will give you the power to command all the elements, to avoid all the dangers, all the snares of your enemies, and to assure you the success of all your enterprises and the fulfillment of all your wishes. He arose, opened a chest which was at the foot of his bed, and took out a cedarwood box covered in gold veneer and enriched with diamonds of an extraordinary brilliance. The lock on which was engraved with hieroglyphic characters was also of gold. He opened this casket, and I saw a large quantity of talismans and rings, which were enriched with diamonds engraved with magical Kabbalistic symbols. It was impossible to look at them without being dazzled. You see, my son, each one has its virtue, its peculiar virtue. But to make use of it, you must understand the language of the magicians in order to pronounce the mysterious words engraved thereon. I will teach them to you before working with you on the great performance with the spirits and the animals who are submissive to my authority and who will obey me blindly. You will see when you have been initiated into all these mysteries of how many errors the majority of those who pretend to be servile to nature have been guilty. They love the truth and believe they have discovered it by means of abstract ideas and lose their way in the faith of a reason of which they do not know the limits. The vulgar or common people do not see over the world in which they live, other than an arc of glittering light during the day and a scattering of stars during the night. These are the limited ones of the universe. Certain of the philosophers have seen more and have increased their knowledge up to nearly the present time to the point of affrighting our imagination. Further, what prodigious work is offered at one stroke to the human spirit. Employ eternity even to survey it. Take the wings of dawn, fly to the planet Saturn and the skies which extend over this planet. You will find without ceasing new spheres, new orbs, and worlds accumulating one above another. You will find infinity in matter, in space, in movement. In a certain manner, the objects which they penetrate, how much they must a man become elated at having penetrated the inconceivable profundities. I am an upstart thanks to wisdom, and you will reach this point too. He arose and took up several manuscripts which were on the table. These precious books, my dear son, will acquaint you with the things unknown to the rest of humanity, and which will seem never to have existed. These books escaped the fire of the library of Ptolemy. They have received some damage, as you see. In effect, several pages have been blackened by the fire. Well, it is by the knowledge which I have been able to draw from these works that I have the authority to command all the beings who inhabit the aerial and terrestrial regions, known and unknown to man. Oh, my son, prostrate yourself before the divinity. deplore in his presence the errors of the human spirit, and promise to him to be as virtuous as it is possible for a man to be. Guard against studying moral philosophy and the ignorant writings of the multitudes, and the schemes produced by the heat of the imagination, by the restlessness of the spirit, or by the desire for celebrity which torments their authors. Seek guidance in those works here or where, having no other interest than truth or other aim than public usefulness. They render to morals and to virtue the homage which they have deserved in all times and from all peoples. I listened to this good old man with an admiration mixed with respect. He had stopped speaking, and I thought I heard him still. A sweet majesty reigned in all his features, and the persuasion seemed to pour from his lips like a limpid stream running down a slope to fertilize the prairies. He noticed my adoration, which was akin to ecstasy. "My dear son," he said, "I pardon your astonishment. You have until now lived in the society of men who are corrupt, who have learnt to doubt everything and to forget the respect which one owes to him who has brought forth all from nothing. Wisdom for them, a meaningless difficulty, but as you learn it, it will become your practical virtue. You will look on it as something very simple, as natural to you as the air you breathe and as necessary to you for your existence. Your wounds are healing. Tomorrow I will commence your education in wisdom, and I will give you the first lesson. I am now going to my aviary to feed my prisoners." "What?" I said to him. "Your prisoners? With your philosophy and the love of humanity which characterizes you, you deprive living creatures of their liberty?" He smiled at my observation. "My dear son, that which I do is necessary to facilitate my mysterious operations. But the destiny of those submissive to my laws is perhaps sweeter than if they enjoyed complete liberty. Besides, they have never known the prize, and so cannot desire it. Tomorrow you will have the answer to all these enigmas." I don't even know if I should jump on this yet. We'll wait until we go a little bit deeper into this, but I hope you guys are starting to catch on to some of the things that are being spoken here. He then left me to enter the cave, and remember in the first book of Adam and Eve, this cave of treasures, right, which is basically inside the mind, where he had led me, when he showed me the chest filled with gold and with precious stones. Soon he came back. I got up. He told me to approach the awning so that we could eat something before going to sleep. He picked up the papers that were on the table. He took a seat and told me to sit by his side. I obeyed, but as I did not see any food, he laughingly added that this food was not very substantial, but that in a moment I would see that he had cooks and slaves, equally clever and intelligent. He'd immediately pronounce these words, "Og Gemenos ter Nakophanta," and blew 3 times on a ring which he had on his finger. Immediately the place was lit up by 7 chandeliers of rock crystal which appeared from the void. Those 7 chandeliers are the 7 chakras, right? Og Gemenos ter Nakophanta, right? These are the words to say. They're telling you how to do it, by the way, right? To light up your chakras. 9 slaves entered the brain, and there's 10 dimensional aspects, or 10 dimensions up to God. We occupy the 9. You guys have probably heard the Council of 9 and shit like that, from a lot of different people. 9 slaves entered bringing various viands and golden plates and wine in vessels of the greatest richness. Incense burned in tripods, and celestial music could be heard. Everything was placed on the table in the most beautiful order. And the slaves stood to attention around us to serve. You see, my son, the good old man repeated to me, I have but to command to be obeyed. Eat, serve yourself, and choose what will gratify you. Everything which I tasted was delicious. Then I took my goblet, and the wine, like nectar, which had been poured into it, its bouquet forerunner to its delicate taste, appealed agreeably to my sense of smell. When it had astonished my palate and I had relished it, it seemed as though a divine fire flowed through my veins and as if I had acquired a new existence. I looked at the slaves who served us. They were all in the flower of their youth, of the greatest beauty, and dressed in rose silk tunics with white belts. And, the Rosicrucianism, right? Those rose silk tunics and the white belts. Like the rose representing like the flower of life and the white representing purity. They have flowing golden curls waving on their shoulders. The hair of the head represents, it's not just a spiritual antenna, but it's like one spiritual elk. It's like where they descend from. So like blonde hair represents purity, things like that. So these flowing golden curls waving on their head, the blonde hair, blue eyes, right? With lowered eyes of respect, they attended to the orders of their master. Oops. The old man allowed me to finish my survey, and then followed up with, my son, you have appeased your hunger? Yes, my father. He raised his hand and said, Usam bidak akos. And slaves hurried to remove all that was on the table. They went out and the chandeliers disappeared and 2 beds arranged themselves on each side of the apartment, which was no longer lit except for the lamp that cast a soft light, not unlike twilight. There, my dear son, is the manner in which you will be served every day. Your occupations will vary innumerably and thus will preserve you from tediousness. Deliver yourself to sleep. I will do the same. And tomorrow when day appears, I will keep my word which I have given to you. But my father, the daylight will never penetrate into your abode. How can you know when break of day will appear? That depends on my will, my son. It is another surprise that I will arrange for you. Until tomorrow, sleep in peace. He extended his hand to me, and I pressed it to my heart. He approached his bed, lay down, and soon sleep weighed down his eyes. I imitated him for a little while, after which I fell asleep. Then I opened my eyes, the lamp had vanished. Daylight lit the chamber, and the rays of the sun penetrated there. The old man was walking with a book in his hand. The movement that I made interrupted his perusal, and he looked at me smilingly. I got up hurriedly and flew into the arms he opened to me. My father, I salute you. You have rested well, my dear son, he said, as I judged by the calm which reigns on your countenance. I just want you to kind of think about this too. This sun that's coming through, in this darkness. This is God's light. It penetrates all darkness, and we have to go within the darkness of ourselves in order to, find the light. It's only when we look at our shadow, and we go within, in our true inner darkness, that we find God. And these servants and slaves can be, thought of as many different things, as our own carnal desires, right, in which we are in servitude to, or, these are spirits or aspects of ourself that we are in command over when we are in a place of self-mastery. Render homage to God who has permitted you to enjoy again this beautiful day, which lights you. And ere I initiate you into the mysteries of wisdom, I will have a conversation with you on a point of my doctrine, which is necessary for developments. He gave me a book, and opening it, he said, here is the first page, and the prayer which you must address to the great being. And I read that which follows. And This is the oration of the sages. Immortal, eternal, ineffable, and sacred Father of all things, who is carried on the chariot rolling without cease, of the worlds which rotate always, ruler of the etheric plane, where your throne of power is exalted, and from whose heights thy formidable eyes discover everything, and your beautiful and saintly ears hear everything. Hearken to your children, whom you have loved from their birth through all time, since your lasting, great, and eternal majesty shines brightly over the world and the starry heavens. Thou art raised above them, O sparkling fire. There you light and maintain yourself in the appropriate splendor. There comes forth your being, never failing streams of light which nourish your infinite spirit. This infinite spirit generates all things. It makes this inexhaustible treasure of matter which cannot fail to procreate that which always surrounds it because of the forms without number with which it is filled, and with which you have filled it since the beginning of time. From this spirit, the very saintly kings who are standing around your throne and whose compose your court also draw their origin. O universal Father, O unique one, O Father of blissful mortals and immortals, you have particularly created the powers which are marvelously like your eternal thought and your adorable essence. You have established them superior to the angels who announce your wishes to the world. Finally, you have created us sovereigns over the elements. Our continued exertion is to praise you and to adore your desires. We burn with the desire to be possessed of you. O Father, O Mother, the most tenderest of mothers, O admirable example of tender sentiment of mothers, O Son, the flower of all sons, O mold of all our shapes, we beloved spirit, soul, harmony, and number of all things, we adore you. When I had finished, he said to me, My dear son, I have spoken to you of the spirits that populate the firmament, the sea, the earth, and fire, that is to say, the elements. I have spoken to you of the spirits and am going to go into greater detail to extend the limits of your intelligence and to give you the means of penetrating into and understanding the sacred mysteries which will be divulged to you. When the universe was full of life, this unique son, this God engendered, had received a spherical body, the most perfect of all. He was subject to circular movement, the simplest of all, the most suitable to his shape. The Supreme Being surveyed his work with complacence, and having compared it with the model which he followed in his operations, he recognized with pleasure that the principal traits of the original repeated themselves in the copy. He did not grant him eternity for these two worlds which could not have the same perfections. He made time, the mobile image of immobile eternity, which measures the duration of the sensible world as eternity measures that of the intellectual world. And for that he left traces of his presence and his movements. The Supreme Being kindled the sun and cast him with other planets in the vast solitude of the airs. It is from there that this heavenly body floods the sky with its light. The contriver of all things then addressed his commandment to the spirits to whom which he had entrusted the administration of the heavenly bodies, which would be like your governors or your archons, right? So the ones that are in charge of the heavenly bodies. Gods who owe your birth to me, listen to my sovereign commands. You do not have the right to immortality, but you participate in it by the power of my will. more powerful than the bonds which unite the parts of which you are composed, it remains for the perfection of all this to fill with inhabitants the seas, the earth, and the airs. If they should owe the day to me, immediately escape the empire of death. They would become equal to the gods themselves. I thus lay on you the care of producing them, agents of my power. Unite to these perishable bodies the favor of immortality which you have received from my hand. Mold in particular those beings who command other animals and who are submissive to you, who are born by your orders, who increase by your good deeds, and who after their death are reunited with you and participate in your happiness. He spoke, and suddenly, pouring into the basin where he had kneeled, the soul of the world, the remainder of this soul held in reserve. He then fashioned the individual souls, and joining to those of men a small portion of the divine essence. He attached to them irrevocable destinies. Finally, having appointed to the inferior gods the successive reclothement of mortal bodies to provide for and control their needs, the Supreme Being re-entered into eternal rest. The inferior gods were obliged to employ the same means in developing us, and thus the maladies of the body, and the even more dangerous ones of the soul. All of this is good in the universe and in general, and in man in particular, derives from the Supreme God. All that is defective comes from the vices inherent in matter. The earth and the heavens are populated, my dear son, with spirits to whom the Supreme Being has confided the administration of the universe. He has distributed them everywhere, as nature appears to be animated, but principally in those regions which stretch around and above us from the earth up to the sphere of the moon. It is where an immense authority is exercised, they dispensing life and death, the good and bad, light and darkness. Each nation, each individual, finds in these invisible representatives an ardent friend to protect him, an enemy no less ardent to pursue him. They are clothed in an aerial body. Their essence holds the middle between divine nature and nature. They surpass us in intelligence. Some of them are subject to our passions, mostly in the changes which pass them on to superior rank. Because of their innumerable multitude, spirits are divided into 4 classes. The first of perfect beings, whom the common herd adore, and who reside in the stars. The second, those of the spirits properly called, and of whom I converse with you. The third, those beings less perfect, who however render great service to humanity. And fourth, those of our souls after they have been separated from the bodies which they inhabited. We may discern from the first 3 the honors. Oops. Lost my place, guys. Hold on. Okay. Okay, I found it. Okay, they have been separating the bodies which they inhabited. We may discern from the first 3 the honors which they will one day become part of our nature, if we cultivate exclusively wisdom and virtue. To render you more sensible of that which I have put forward to you relative to the spirits, I will give you an account of what befell me with those who are submissive to me. Know also they only communicate to souls after a long time of preparation and meditation and prayer. The dominion which I have obtained over my spirit is the result of my constancy in the practice of the virtues. In the beginning, I saw him only rarely. One day, yielding to my repeated entreaties, he transported me to the realm of the spirits. Listen, my son, to the story of my voyage. And, he's basically saying, like, before you can master yourself or talk to the dead or any of these things, it's like, this is something you will have to actually, this is a practice of self-mastery, studying, all this you have to actually do for a time. You have to gain the authority within oneself before you can, begin to really have mastery over other spirits or even over the higher self. I hope you're well too. Thank you so much for watching. You guys make sure to hit that like. The moment of my departure having arrived, I felt my soul detach itself from the bonds which attached it to the body. And I found myself in the middle of a new world of animated substances, good or malignant, blithe or sad, prudent or careless. We followed them for some time, and I recognized some who were directing the interest of nations and those of individuals, the researches of sages and the opinions of the multitude. And, when we think about nations, a lot of times nation in the biblical meaning, the etymology means a flight of locusts. So nations are like kind of like groups of demons or soul groups, right, if you will. So nations are kind of like soul groups. We'll just kind of put it that way, so you don't have like a negative connotation with it. So we can look at nations as kind of like soul groups. Soon a woman of gigantic stature extended her black veil over the vault of the skies, and having descended slowly to earth, she gave her orders to the cortege which had accompanied her. We glided into several houses. Sleep and its ministers scattered poppies with full hands, and while silence and peace spread gently around virtuous men, remorses and frightful specters shook the beds of the wicked with violence. And think about that too. This woman of gigantic stature is the divine feminine or the Holy Spirit. Okay. After descending slowly to the earth, she gave orders which accompanied her, and we glided into several houses. Your spiritual house or temple is your body, right? Silence and peace spread over the virtuous, right? Bringing silence and peace, calmness in one's mind, peace, inner peace, while, demons and ghosts and violence, the wicked, right? You're going to get whatever's within you. Dawn and the hours open the barriers of the day, my guide said to me. It is time to rise into the air. See the tutelary spirits of Egypt soaring over the different towns and regions while the Nile irrigates. They dispel as much as possible the evils with which they are menaced. Nevertheless, their countryside will be devastated because the spirits enveloped in dark clouds are advancing and thundering against us. He then announced to me the arrival of the army which you formed a part because he had knowledge of its coming. Observe now these assiduous agents, who with a flight as rapid and as restless as a swallow, skim over the earth and cast piercing looks on all sides for greed and avidity. These are the inspectors of human affairs. Some spread their sweet influence over the mortals whom they protect. Others launch the relentless nemesis against grave transgressions. See these meditators, these expounders who rise and descend without cease. They carry your prayers and your offerings to the gods. They bring back to us happy or distressing dreams and the secrets of the future, which are then revealed to you by the mouth of the oracles. These protectors are angels, right? They're going to and fro, right? Think about Satan in the book of Job. He's going to and fro, right? Back and forth. And they're carrying with you your prayers and things like that. They're, they can either be your protectors or, the ones that's actually, tearing you up depending on what type of life you're living, These are also the entities that engage with you in the astral or the dream realm, or your guardian angels as well. And what you're going to see too in a lot of these different, as we go through this, not just the different magical incantations and stuff, but a lot of these different things, I'm not trying to, it'll take me 10 years to break down this book if I, break down every single line of it, but, a lot of these are prayers, or incantations for you, yourself, to apply in your own life, to, create yourself. It's to declare sovereignty, right, over the spiritual realm for yourself, right? Just saying, that's what they're trying to teach you. That's why they've got these different things to say and shit like that. You're supposed to say these things. This is the declaration of sovereignty, and it's a process, mastering of the elements and all of this, self-initiation into the mysteries. Excuse me. Oh, my protector, I cried suddenly. Here are beings which in their stature and sinister appearance inspire terror. They come to us. Flee, he said to me. They are unhappy. The good fortune of others irritates them, and they spare only those who pass their life in suffering and in tears. Escaping from their fury, we found objects no less afflicting. Discord, the detestable and eternal source of dissensions which torment men, marched proudly above their heads and whispered outraged vengeance into their hearts. With timid steps and lowered eyes, the prahels trailed on their steps and endeavored to recall everywhere the calm they had showed themselves. Glory was pursued by envy, who tore her own sides, truth by and prose who changed its face from moment to moment, each virtue by several vices which carried snares or knives. And it's saying too, when you find enlightenment or you pursue enlightenment, there are demons or entities that are going to try to stop you, make you turn back from this. People, these entities they only get off on suffering. They leave you alone when your life is pointless. These spirits attack you when you're seeking enlightenment. These spirits attack you, when you're making something of yourself in the spiritual realm. If you're not doing shit and you're just being a lazy bum and you're foolish and you know nothing and you have no sense of enlightenment, then they don't care. You're doing their job for them. Fortune appeared suddenly. My guide said to me, "You can speak with her." I believe he's talking about Fortuna. I felicitated her, and she, goddess of good luck and shit like that. I felicitated her on the gifts which she distributed to the mortals. She told me in a serious tone that she did not give, but took a great interest. While uttering these words, she soaked the flowers and fruits which she held in one hand and in a poisoned cup which she held in the other. Then passed near us two powerful spirits who left long trails of light after them. The one was war and the other wisdom. My guide told me 2 armies were approaching each other. and were on the point of coming to blows. Wisdom would place herself near the general, whose cause was just, and he would be the victor because worth must triumph. And these are the two sides of oneself, right? Like clashing. There's a war with oneself, right? Whenever we decide to move towards the light, you know. Our old life with our new life, our old way of thinking with our new way of thinking, you know, our darkness with our light. Let us leave these unhappy spheres, said my spirit. We leapt the limits of the sphere of darkness and death with the speed of lightning and of thought. We then shot above the sphere of the moon, and we reached the regions lit by eternal day. Let us stop for an instant, said my guide. Cast your eyes over the magnificent spectacle which surrounds you. Listen to the divine harmony which is produced by the regular movement of the celestial bodies. Look how to each planet, each star, is attached by a spirit which directs its course. These heavenly bodies are populated by sublime intelligences of a nature superior to ours. And, you know, when we look at these planets and these luminaries, it's saying they're conscious beings as well. These are conscious energies also within the heavens, you know. It's like depending upon our astrological correlation to each of them depends on their influence over our lives. With my eyes fixed on the sun, which the sun is pure awareness, it's God energy, right? I contemplated with ravishment the spirit who with a vigorous arm pushes the scintillating globe on the course which he has decreed. I watched him cast aside with fury the souls who endeavor to plunge into the boiling surges of the sphere to purify themselves, although they were not worthy of his blessing. Touched by their misfortune, I begged my conductor to take me away from this sight and to lead me to this distance towards an enclosure where one could escape the rays of light which were too brilliant. I hoped to catch a glimpse of the sovereign of the universe surrounded by the assistants of his throne and those pure beings which our philosophers call numbers. Eternal ideas are spirits of the mortals. My spirit told me that the sovereign inhabits regions inaccessible to humans, that we should offer him homage and descend to earth. Well, hardly he had spoken when we found ourselves in the same place from whence we made our departure. He said to me, I have let you become acquainted with that which no mortal has ever been permitted to glimpse. From this moment it is no longer forbidden for me to hide anything from you. And he unveiled to me all the mysteries in which I will let you participate. To convince you of the truth, all that I have given out to you, you will see my spirit, who will become yours. Become yours since I have adopted you as my son. He will see you in another me. He pronounced these two words, Ku Pax. In that instant, I saw appear a young man of the most beautiful stature. The remainder of his person shone with all the charms, and on the summit of his head shone a flame of which my eyes could not sustain the brilliance. He said, smiling at the old man, Oles notos perius. The old man took his hand and answered, Salatus Xantur Dinatur. The spirit took his place by his side. The old man noticed that the spirit's light dazzled my eyes. When you have been initiated into the mysteries of wisdom, you will be able to contemplate this fire without danger, and even to stand the rays of the sun. Let us begin the initiation. Let us stand. I executed this order, which he had given, as did the spirit. He placed his hand on my head and said, Sina, Mises, Tanem, Orseo, Mosantos. A voice came from the cavern, wherein were the coffers containing all the precious stones, gave this answer. Torzas, Elecanthus, Orbital. Hardly the last word had been pronounced than we found ourselves in the most profound darkness. The fire which had shone on the head of the spirit had also disappeared. Be without dread or fear, the old man said. My father, am I not with you? Your answer pleases me. It proclaims confidence. You will now test the effects of it, he then said. The Matos, Benasser, Elianter, everything was then lit up by a seemingly dark light, and I saw enter several individuals who took up positions around the room. Here are all the spirits who will be subservient to you. I will proclaim them to you. He took me by the hand and conducted me around the room. He stopped in front of every spirit and said to me, repeat with me, Litau, Ezer, Osnas. I obeyed, and each spirit bowed, saying, Nunther. There were 33. 33. When he had reached the last one, he told me to return to the place which I had occupied. Then he took a wand, 6 feet in length, having at one of the end a head of a serpent, and at the other the tail. On the wand were plates of gold, the same as the head and tail, on which were engraved the characters as illustrated in figure 1. He formed a circle by uniting each end by a golden chain, which he passed through 2 links. He put it on the ground and placed himself in the center. Which do you wish to see at this moment, my son? He asked me. The plane in which you found me at this point of death, from pain and want? I answered no. He raised his hands toward the heaven and said, Saltram, you Barcinans. Immediately the spirits approached me, and taking me in their arms, they lifted. Number 1, the figure of the wand stained with the blood of the lamb. You can see right there. These characters should be written on the wand with Indian ink. Right here, the characters. Hopefully you can see with my cursor. Going across. It's the Ouroboros, right? The serpent devouring his own tail, which represents, the cycle of life, the heavenly spheres, all of that. And I am actually going to wrap it up here. This is going to be the end of part 1 for this book. I'm getting tired by reading, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. We will pick up part 2. I'll probably do part 2 of the Necronomicon, the Mad Arab story, next. I've got so many different cool things coming. We're going to be doing the Sworn Book of Honorius, Abramelin the Mage. I mean, I've just got so many cool things on the way for you guys. It won't, be all books, but, I do like to share some of these grimoires with you guys, because the Book of Lies, the Treatise on the 7 Rays, the Babylonian Genesis, or the Enuma Elish, Amalantra Working. This is what we'll be doing next. The Testimony of the Mad Arab, which will be part 2, the last part of the Necronomicon, Epic of Gilgamesh. I've got so many different things coming, guys. So, I mean, if you're not familiar with what talismans are, we'll kind of go here before we wrap it up. Talismans are an object which is believed to contain certain magical properties which provide good luck for the possessor and possibly offer protection from evil or harm. The word comes from the Arabic word talisman, meaning completion or religious rite. Amulets and talismans are often considered interchangeable despite their differences. An amulet is an object with natural magical properties, whereas a talisman must be charged with magical powers by a creator. The talisman can be created for a specific purpose, which an amulet can be used for generic purposes such as protection, averting evil, or attracting good luck. In the alchemy of time and consciousness, talismans and amulets have always been programmed as tools of power and protection in lieu of our own limited abilities that most of us feel we should genetically possess. In other words, they protect us while we are experiencing in physical reality. Our souls knowing that we are inherently light and consciousness and about to return to the state of being. According to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, a magical order active in the United Kingdom during the late 19th and early 20th century, a talisman is a magical figure charged with the force which it is intended to represent. In the construction of a talisman, care should be taken to make it, as far as possible, so to represent the universal forces that it should be in exact harmony with those which you wish to attract. And the more exact the symbolism, the easier it is to attract the force. Talismanic scroll from the collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This object is an 11th century talismanic scroll which was discovered in Egypt, produced by Fatimid Islamic Caliphate, 909 to 1171 CE. It resides in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York, New York, along with a number of other medieval Islamic amulets and talismans that were donated to the museum by Abameir family in 78. About 9 inches by 3 in size, the miniature paper scroll contains a combination of prayers, Quranic verses, and was created for placement in an amulet box. This book print bears Tufik, the oldest calligraphic Arabic script, as well as Solomon's seal, a star with 6 points that has been identified in a large number of Islamic art pieces of the period. Block printing was utilized as a technique throughout which to mass produce talisman scrolls hundreds of years before block printing was incorporated into European societies. You can see the Seal of Solomon right here. The Seal of Solomon, also known as the interlaced triangle, is another primeval talisman and amulet that has been commonly used in several religions, but though it is said to have been the emblem by which the wise king ruled the genii, or genie, it could not have originated with him, as it date backs much further than Jewish dispensation. As a talisman, it was believed all-powerful, being the ideal symbol of the absolute, and was worn for protection against all fatalities, threats, and trouble, to protect its wearer from all evil. And in Constitution, the triangle with the apex upwards represents good, and with the inverted triangle, evil. The triangle with the apex up being typical of the Trinity that exists in several religions, in India, China, and Japan, and its 3 angles represents Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the creator, preserver, and destroyer, or regenerator. In Egypt, it represents Osiris, Isis, and Horus, and Christian Church, the Holy Trinity. As a whole, it stands for the elements of fire and spirit, composed out of 3 virtues: love, truth, and wisdom. The triangle with its apex downward symbolized the element of water and typified the material world, or the 3 enemies of the soul: the world, the flesh, and the devil, and the cardinal sins: envy, hatred, and malice. Therefore, the meaning of the 2 triangles interlaced is the victory of spirit over matter, and at the beginning of our present civilization was believed an all-powerful talisman and amulet, especially when used with either the cross of Tau or the Hebrew Yod, and the Egyptian Kru Ansata in the center. Kabbalah talismans. All the traditional magical schools advise that a talisman should be created by the person who plans to use it. They also recommend that the person making the talisman must be familiar with all the symbolisms connected to all the different planetary and elemental forces. In several medieval talismans, geomantic signs and symbols were used in relation with different planets. These symbolisms, which are frequently incorporated in geomantic divination, also have alchemical implications, which we will get into the Picatrix as well, to kind of look at some of the astrological things, you know. Other magical associations such as colors, scents, symbology, patterns, Kabbalistic figures can also be integrated in the creation of talismans. However, they should be in synchronization with the elemental or planetary force selected to represent the talisman, and also feasible to augment personal touch to the talisman through adding a verse, inscription, or pattern. These inscriptions can be magical emblems, Bible verses, or sonnets. So, you know, it's saying, like, it has to correlate to, you know, astrologically, to whatever planet or constellation or star which invokes a particular energy. Archangels, deities, whatever. The colors have to correlate to that as well. All symbols, you know, sigils that are on there have to correlate to these things also. And it has to be made by the person that's going to wear it with this intent. So every inscription and pattern and number and symbol and astrological thing has to line up with the energy you're trying to invoke by the talisman. So if you're trying to do protection, it has to have, you know, a protection sigil on there with a god of protection, you know, and a color that represents protection, and so on and so forth. An animal of protection, or say you're trying to do memory, you know, or, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to invoke or use a talisman for, you know, whether it's attracting money or, you know, good luck or whatever. So you have to make sure that it's congruent all the way down, you know, and it makes sense magically. Talismans and amulets were prescribed, and, you know, if anybody needs help out there, I'm not going to say I'm going to do them all for free, but if, say, you know, say you're interested in, like, you know, making your own talisman or amulet, if you reach out to me, I've been thinking about working on, you know, a list of, like, all the different crystals, colors, planets, stars, and stuff like that, and kind of, you know, lumping them together and showing people different combinations of what they can use for what. You know, say they, you know, whether it's herbs, all of it. You know, that way, if they want to give an offering to certain things to bring good luck into their life, or for protection in their life, or, you know, they want to make, you know, a talisman or create a sigil out of something, like, you kind of would have all of it. But that's probably going to be something for patrons, you know, that I'm working on. I'm really trying to work on an inner circle for our patrons and, you know, members. That way we have something that, you know, gives you, like, practical application into your life with these things. I know like, people got such a bad point of view when it comes to, like, this type of stuff. They see it as, you know, really evil and shit like that, but it truly is the intent behind it. As long as you're not using any of these things to harm others, you know, or take advantage of others, you know, as long as it's used for, like, protection, or to bring good things into your life, or bring good things into other people's life, you know, with a pure heart and good intention, you know, that's what matters. That's what's going to determine whether or not you get that reflex wave back from doing these things. Like, when people say, oh, don't mess with this or don't mess with that, the reason they say that is because they probably got a reflex wave back, because whenever they took on a particular operation or a magical practice, either A, they didn't take, you know, there's a process to this, there's cleansing, and, you know, and then not just cleansing yourself, purifying yourself before you do these things, but then, like, invoking the light and protection within you, and, you know, things like that before you ever begin anything, working on anything. And a lot of people don't do all the steps right, and then when they put something together, they don't put it together right, and then they want to turn around and tell you it's evil, and not to do it, but the truth is they just didn't know what they were doing. They didn't do their research, they didn't do their homework, they half-assed it, or they had done it wrong, and it came back on them. The reflex wave came back on them because either A, they tried to use it to harm somebody, B, they tried to use it for some, selfish gain, which, would harm innocent bystanders in some way, or C, they had ugly shit in their heart, ugly shit in their heart. So, talismans in the Abrahamic religions, in antiquity in the Middle Ages, most Jews, Christians, and Muslims in the Orient believed in the protective and healing power of amulets and blessed objects. Talismans used by these peoples can be broken down into three main categories. The first are the types carried and worn on the body. The second version of the talisman is one which is hung upon or above the bed of an infirm person. The last classification of talisman is one with medicinal qualities. This latter category of items can be further divided into external and internal. And this former one could, for example, place an amulet in a bath. The power of the amulet would be understood to be transmitted to the water, and thus the bather in the latter inscriptions would be written or inscribed onto food, which was then boiled. The resulting broth, which consumed, was assumed to be healing. Jews, Christians, Muslims have also at times used their holy books in talisman-like manner in grave situations. For example, a bedridden and seriously ill person would have all, holy books under part of the bed or the cushion. Sorry guys, I'm getting a little tired. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I'll just have to pick it up tomorrow. I'm getting too tired to do this, and I don't want to make it shitty. So I want to thank all of you guys for joining me tonight. Please hit the like, give us a thumbs up, share this in your groups, your social media pages. I know this was, a little bit wordy, and this was a lot of reading and stuff like that. But, this is a book worth trying. I will definitely put this on Patreon and also post this in the description. We will, come back and do a part 2 for this as well. And like I said, the next part 2 will be the Necronomicon, the Mad Arab story, which is really good. Anybody's ever heard that? We've already covered the Cthulhu mythos, and we've got so many other things. I've got the Book of Revelations. I got another, video coming on that. Just so much more on the way. So, and everybody, please, hey, keep me in your prayers too. Recently, I've had a little bit of health things going on, so keep me in your prayers, shit like that, and consider donating, supporting to the channel. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you guys for all that you do too. You can support paypal.me/thebestdampodcast, Cash App, Best Damn Podcast, or Facebook.com, John Keane, Best Damn Podcast, or you can join me over on Patreon. And like I said, everybody who donates and supports, if you donate at the end of January, I'll give you access all February. So donate, this last week of January. You'll get access all of February to all the live shows on Sundays. Or you can join us over on Patreon, and you'll get access to all of our uncensored content. And you're also helping me to be able to continue doing what I do, and helping me with, just everything, really. And I definitely need the help right now, so it's greatly appreciated to everybody who will donate and support. It's patreon.com, Best Damn Podcast Official. If you'd like to book a tarot reading, dream interpretation, or any spiritual work, you can text 513-393-2396 or email therealbestdampodcast@gmail.com. You can also text that number after you've donated to get your links if you went, the PayPal, Cash App, or Facebook route. Otherwise, those on Patreon, you can just see it in the post for the patrons. And like I said, make sure Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, TikTok, YouTube, all that good stuff, guys. The links are all in the description box down below. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Peace.
Let me tell you, look. I got the drop, I got the low. Got what they cook up on that stove. I got the drop, I got the low. I got the drop, I got the low. Got what they cook up on that stove. I got that work, they be like, whoa. Fuck up a bag, they fuck up some more. I got the drum up on that pole. Spit on your block and let it bitch blow. Oh, I'm the shit, bitch, you ain't know. Fuck up a bag, they fuck up some more. Fuck up a bag, 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 and fuck up some more. It ain't my fault if I leave them like both. I put the drum in that bitch, let it blow. Call his ass like in front of that stove. All my shooters stay ready to go. Bitch, I'm a demon, I came from below. I've been to places you never will go. Speaking on shit that you don't even know. Fuck up a bag, they kicking your dough. Heard they got bricks for the low. Get on the phone, better find me the low. Roll down the streets, so they know I'm let's go. Running they spot, but they give up the dough. Face on the ground, if you move, I'ma blow. Run at that bitch with a case. Bullet holes all in their face, try to tell them this shit wasn't fake. I got the drop, I got the low. Got what they cook up on that stove. I got that work, they be like, whoa. Fuck up a bag, they fuck up some more. I got the drum up on that pole. Spit on your block and let it bitch blow. Oh, I'm the shit, bitch, you ain't know. Fuck up a bag, they fuck up some more. Fuck up a bag, 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 fuck up a bag.